Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I am joined by the lovely Tim McKay, who has recently released his book, chunker of a book, I should say. Can you pronounce this for me? Because I'm always going to get it wrong. The Fall of Selvandria.
Selvandria.
There we go. I got
Totally
it.
fair. Early readers convinced me I needed to throw a pronunciation guide in there, and so I did, and that's exactly why. Because if you print, I'm not picky about that sort of thing. If someone said the Fall of Selvandria, I'd be
Right.
perfectly happy. But yeah, if you want to know how I imagined it, it's Selvandria.
Beautiful. It's helpful because I think for any reader, the bane of their existence is fantasy pronunciations.
Yeah. That's what the audiobook is for, right? Which I do plan
Yeah.
to do soon, so we'll see.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to delve into that. But in the meantime, for everyone watching, could you introduce yourself and your book?
Yeah, so here I'll grab it again. But my name is Tim McKay, and I started writing The Fall of Selvandria about 3 years ago. Initially published it, or I published two parts of it, the first two parts as two shorter books. And I realized as I went along that it tells much better as a longer story. And even when I wrote it, I had these initial two larger arcs that I split into 6 parts. Because my goal was always to make it a bullet-sized, fast-paced, dark. I say dark, but I don't mean grim dark. I mean, just has a dark edge. So dark, but clean flintlock fantasy. There's some sci-fi, some would say more than they were even expecting in fantasy. So if you enjoy genre mashups, I try to blend some of the. I try to cross some lines there, and so far the reviews have said, "Hey, you know what? This shouldn't work," and it really does. And so just if that's the sort of thing you don't like, maybe brace yourself and see what you think. You'll know probably. I'd say 50 to 70 pages in if it's up your alley, as far as that goes. But yeah, other than that, it's just dark, clean adventure fantasy.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we have Kenneth here as well, Professor Hat, he says. Welcome.
See, that is perfect. Yes. Professor Hat, I love it.
So I've also had the pleasure of meeting you in person a couple times, and we've had lovely chats. But one thing I have to say, and I need to tell this for everyone, because it's hard to tell, right? Everyone's online. You are very tall, and I am quite short.
I don't find you that short.
Come on, I'm barely gracing 5 foot. Thank you, though. But
that genuinely surprises me. But then again, I mean, I'm coming from the perspective of 6'4", so everyone's sort of within a certain range for me, except for the Matts or the Nick Horvaths of the world. Every once in a while, every rare once in a while, I meet someone taller than me, and it's always a shock. Absolutely.
Well, my perspective was this was excellent because we went book shopping. It was excellent because you could reach the books I couldn't.
There you go. Oh, that was so much fun. Yeah, there is nothing cooler than getting to go hang out with a booktuber, one of your favorite booktubers, and just an all-around awesome person. Like in a freaking Indigos, that's the dream right there. That is a book lover's dream. Absolutely.
Well, likewise, being a booktuber and being able to hang out and go book shopping with an author, because we swap book recommendations. We can talk about all of those books that we talked about before here today again.
Yeah.
But to hear book recommendations and just chat nerdy fantasy stuff was a blast. So absolutely. So we got to talk about your book though, because it's new, it's shiny, and you also, in addition to the expansion that you made, and the essentially a relaunch of it, you also got illustrations done.
Yeah.
Can we talk about those? Because they are stunning.
Absolutely.
Can I show some?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. I should have sent you the files in advance if you wanted to put them up. But yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll find them. You chat. I'll find them.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, and I have some news on that front as well. But so for each of the 3 parts in the book, there's one of those black and white illustrations by Joe Requeza. Actually, and see, you want to talk about mispronunciation? I know I almost guarantee I'm mispronouncing his name, and I need to finally ask him. So, but yeah. So here I am, singing his praises to everyone I talk to, and I'm probably getting his name wrong every time. But
That's every reader about an author's name too.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So just what a gem of a guy, and the turnaround was incredibly fast, and his response to details, and making little changes here and there on, just on the nose, very fair priced. And so when I decided to do that, I thought it was time to put some of these ideas onto the page, in illustration. And I searched around for a bit, came across some of his work. When I went in, I only saw one or two of his black and white illustrations. Most of the stuff I saw were his colored, full illustrated covers, and
Okay.
and what he has done for me with these three illustrations goes far and beyond anything I saw in his portfolio for black and white illustration. Like, he just blew me away. Yeah,
Right.
like, yeah.
See if I
So
can
therefore,
get that there.
for the Seas of the Zova, so you have ships at sea with lightning in the background and a storm raging all around. It's this epic battle between a frigate and a brig, kind of Napoleonic era technology. Spoiler, monsters, come in that scene as well. Lots of
Nice.
monsters and dragons in this book, lots of cannons, lots of muskets and one-shot pistols. That was the era of technology I kind of wanted to go for. Some crossover with medieval, a little bit.
Okay.
I blur the lines there very intentionally, and to me, that's the joy of it. So any history buffs out there, I did a history degree. I feel mildly qualified to know what I should have done, and then to deliberately break some of those rules. So you'll see what I
Right.
mean in some scenes, but in the world, it makes sense. That's
Hmm.
the distinguish, or the distinction I'll make.
I feel like even if you have the education and the facts, you're writing fantasy, so you get a pass
Mhm.
on blending those,
But
you
you get
know?
those comments, and it's so funny. Now, I haven't with this book at all, but I think it was
Okay.
when I put out my first little snippet. Some of the comments were really entertaining, and it's great. And it's
Oh,
yeah,
it's bound to happen.
yeah,
Yeah, and then I'm gonna try and get that last one there.
yeah. There we go. The Skelva, and so far everyone's favorite character in the book is Rinwen, or Rin as she's called, by most people.
Okay.
She's a little 9-year-old ball of energy, uh, ADHD, whatever you want to call her. Her mind is scattered, and it's this world riddled with evil and confusion and mystery and who done it. And then there's this girl who just rampages through it, doing, couldn't care less, happy-go-lucky, total sweetheart, impervious to it all, and several chapters. I aimed for a few per part. I know it's I think three-ish, two or three. Uh, Three, I think, in the first part, another two in the second, and
Mhm.
then I think a few more in the third. And her perspective is the most fun to write from. You
Oh,
get to,
really?
oh yeah, because I'm a stickler
Mm.
to a point for sure. I'll break rules intentionally, but uh, I can get very rigid on myself, and especially when I get down to editing. And my editing process was, especially with this book, I've never
Right.
gone through a more extensive editing process. But then, when you're writing from a 9-year-old's perspective, you can really break. If
Mm.
you can throw in, you can say. I even said this to my class yesterday. I said, depending on your point of view, and I told them this story. I said, when I'm writing from a 9-year-old, energetic, scatterbrained, perspective, I'm using words like big and little, and
Yeah.
simplifying, and sentence fragments, and breaking all the rules, and it's a
Yeah.
blast. You can kind of just, I'm having fun as I'm writing that, and I think it comes across, because yeah, readers have said the same.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, that's so funny. I don't know. Yeah, you'll
That's
see what I mean when you
fantastic.
get into it.
Yes, yeah. Well, it must be rewarding, right? When you're having fun writing a
Yeah,
character and your readers are having fun reading that same character. Because it's while you're having fun, it's still work, right? You
yeah,
still have to
yeah,
make sure that you're being consistent and you're not, like you said, simplifying words. You don't want to throw in something that's out of character
yeah.
for her dialogue, right? So that's a lot of attention to detail too, to capture a younger uh,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
person
and,
than
and
yourself.
it has to be consistent with the world too, right? So
Mm,
that radical a break from the voice you use for other characters, and they all have their unique voice, but
yeah.
this was this is by far the biggest break from the other characters, and it still has to
Right.
fit in that world, right? It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's tricky.
So, in terms of the world, spoiler free, what can you tell us about the world? Because I know you said you blended in Flintlock, and I know you have a personal preference in terms of your own reading for Flintlock as well. But can you tell us a little bit about how, like, you put all of these elements together? What was challenging about blending those elements? And like you said, the history versus fantasy. Did you run into roadblocks? Did you run into just creative moments where you're like, oh, this would be amazing to throw in, or anything like that?
That's it's tough. Yes and no. You know, because for
Mm.
me, a lot of these daydreams go back years and years and years. I've had the time to wrestle around with some of the maybe the inconsistencies and iron it out. So I
Yeah.
felt like during the actual writing that I've had a lot to work with, and
Mm.
I I almost want to say I cheated. I created a world in which I realistically could break even more rules than I have, and it would be
Oh,
totally consistent in the world. You know,
right.
um,
Okay.
again without giving spoilers.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's almost I have to consistently resist the temptation to do even more, just so I don't throw readers for too much of a spin in too little
Right.
space. You know, it's about
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
That's
And I mean,
fair.
most readers will even say it. There's enough mystery and chaos in there already. You know, so
Right. Okay. That's fair. And because so how far back did you start writing this? Because you said you've been working on this for a while. When did the idea for this story, this world come into play?
see, writing would have been about 3 years ago. Um,
Okay.
you know, well, yeah, so late 2021, early 2022. Um, but I had a good chunk of the storyline already in mind, just from
Mm,
let's just call it overactive imagination, daydreaming. The times you pause while you're reading a good fantasy book and you're imagining your own world, inspired by
mm,
something, or you're watching a movie and you think, oh, but what about that? And what if and your mind just goes. And for me, as young as I was 10, actually, I would actually go back that far. I started
okay.
writing one of these characters when I was 10, and I showed it to a friend, and the friend said, "Yeah, well, it just seems like you're trying to imitate, J.R.R. Tolkien, so maybe not." And I said, "Yeah, you're right," and I tossed it aside. And
Oh.
yeah, and that's probably my only regret with my writing is I wish I had. I probably needed to hear it. We all start a little derivative, and that's how we all start.
Yes.
But yeah, I think as an author, you have to have a thick enough skin to keep going. But at 10 years old, I
Mm,
just thought, oh, maybe I'm not good enough to do this. It took,
right. Because at 10, a lot of us think we're amazing when we
yeah,
first try something, right? And
yeah.
then,
It's
yeah.
the combination of that, and then I think I was, well, I mean, I know you have a somewhat like a musical background, so I'm sure you
Yes.
can relate to
Yeah.
part of this. On one half of my family, very musical, very artistic,
Hmm.
and me, I kind of grew up separate, so that was it was I had some there was always some appeal to that to me and some natural ability to understand it. So I always
Right.
did kind of well in like band or things like that in school, but
Hmm.
I never took it further. I tried a little bit here and there and just never got committed enough to things like guitar or harmonica. I
Yeah.
took I took both of those up for a time.
Yeah.
Uh, but here's the thing: I always saw art, and so I'm saying
Mm.
music, but also writing as this innate talent you either have or you don't.
Right. And not something that you work at,
Yeah, not a
rather.
skill that you can develop.
Yeah.
I knew that with enough work you got better over time, but I didn't think
Yes.
of it in terms of well, exactly that, a skill. And
Right.
and it took
Mm.
honestly probably another 15 years for that reframe to finally click into place for me and realize, oh wait, I like write it. I went to university a lot.
Yeah.
I did a lot of school, and my writing was atrocious. Everyone in university develops this long-winded, jargon-filled,
Right.
terrible writing, and that was me to a T because it's all I knew. It's all I've been taught. When someone finally said, here are some things that could help you tighten this, rephrase this,
Mm.
make this more persuasive, this will actually, if you change these words here, if you change this order, if you vary your sentence length, you can actually make it more beautiful, more persuasive, you know,
Mm.
just treating it as a
Yeah.
skill let me totally rethink the way I approach this. And that's what gave me the courage, I think, to try again. But
That's
again, it took like
fantastic.
15 years, which is just ridiculous.
Well, I mean, and it's good that you did try to start and you came back to it,
Yeah.
because I know that there's probably quite a few people in the world who just went, "Ah, well, that one's
Yeah.
in the bin with
Yeah.
the rest." And writing is hard. Like you said, it's you had to reframe, relearn, writing structures and stuff, and that is not something that a course will always tell you, depending on the course that you're taking, right?
Yeah.
If you're just in basic university courses, high school courses, and you're not seeking outward creative writing courses, it can be difficult to get that advice. So it's tricky too if you're limited in terms of what you can get exposure to.
Yeah. What's available to you? Oh,
Yeah,
it's so true. It's so
yeah.
true. I wish. Well, no, I mean, yeah, they try. I don't want to fault universities too hard, but
No, no, but
we
in
had
the
one
sense,
English course,
yeah.
that was focused on essay writing, and it was just
Mhm.
more
Yeah.
5 paragraphs and make sure your citations are proper, and that's it. And that's
Yeah.
really, I'm not exaggerating. It's really that's
Yeah.
it. That's as deep as they go into the technique of being a better writer.
Yeah. And yeah, it has its place, it has its purpose, and, there are good things to learn from it, but it's not necessarily the same, like, 5 pages isn't the same as, like, a 700-page fantasy book, right?
Yeah,
Entirely different structure there.
very much so. Yeah.
And we have some more lovely folks in the chat. Derek and Cinna, welcome. Good to see you all. And if any of you have any questions for Tim as well, pop them in the chat and we will get to those as well. In the meantime, let's talk about that audiobook, because I'm always excited for audiobooks.
Yeah.
If whatever you can share.
It's tough. So
Okay.
pending a potential opportunity that I'm still waiting to hear back on. It could either come relatively sooner. I'm still hopeful, but I don't know.
Okay.
If not, the goal is definitely to start on it in the new year. So
Okay.
early 2025 would
Yeah,
be the goal. Yeah.
that's exciting. And do you have your narrator picked, or are you still kind of looking for a narrator?
There too, it's one of
Okay.
3 options, and two of them I can't share about. The third, I've
You don't have to.
invested. Well, the third is me
Oh,
as an
okay.
option. So I've started looking into some courses to work on some audio training. I have some
Ooh.
new equipment that I want to test out, get some soundproofed area in the apartment prepped, and go from there. But that's kind of I want to treat that as my last resort. I've recorded over half of the first book, or sorry, the first part, just
Yeah.
to see and just to start practicing. And it was a lot of fun. I love listening to it, funny enough.
Nice.
So I think with a little more training and practice, I could do it
Yeah.
acceptably. But then I talked to the pros and I realized I'm still way far away from what I think. Yeah, like Ithra there,
Right.
Cinepum. I think diehard audiobook fans are going to want more of a performative
Mm.
quality piece, and I just want to make sure if I can deliver it, I kind of want to try, but I would much rather, if I'm being honest, invest in someone who really knows what they're doing.
Yeah, that's
So
understandable. I know there are quite a few authors who do narrate their own, like AR with them, for example.
mm,
But I also know that, so like I'm not sure if Andy does it in particular. I have a feeling he does, but where they will record it, but they have someone else do the editing and the like technique and stuff like that.
there, yeah,
I
that's a
know
good in between.
I think Jim Wilborn does that. He does the editing side of the audiobook, as
Interesting.
an example. So I know that you could have the option to record it, and then if it comes to the technical side of like making echoes or,
Yeah.
things
Oh, see,
like
I love
that.
wrestling with that stuff
Yeah.
though. So
Yeah,
which
okay.
if you had talked to me 5 or 10 years ago, I would have said the exact opposite. I would have said I don't like. Yeah, maybe.
Yes,
Sorry.
and is saying E.L. Montagu could potentially give some advice there as well.
Yeah. Um, what was I going to say off that though?
5 to 10 years ago, you wouldn't have said
Yeah, five to
Jim a
ten
bit of
years ago, I
advice.
wouldn't have liked a lot of the technical side of what we do.
Mm.
In the author's space, just things like this. New. You
Mm.
constantly are learning new skills. In design
Yeah.
for marketing, in formatting for books, whether you use InDesign or Word, you still have to learn so much. And
Yeah.
then now audiobook and video editing.
Yeah.
That applies to marketing too. Obviously, things like TikTok or even YouTube.
Yeah, it's a whole other sphere now.
Yeah.
You were in publishing today, because especially with the boom in self-publishing, there's you're your own boss. You have you
Mhm.
yourself and maybe a small team, but the small team might not always be making social media posts. That's on you and your shoulders, and it's time consuming. Social media is so time consuming.
Yeah.
I don't know if you find that, but I find it a time drain.
I love it, but it definitely is. And I mean, I restrict
Yeah.
myself for now. I have a minor presence on other mediums, but really it's
Yeah.
just Twitter X that I'm on mostly.
Yeah.
So I kind of just keep tweaking and playing around with, my presence there and kind of leave it at that. Cause if I did anything more, I would be drained for sure. If you're
Yeah.
doing that on top of writing, my daily life right now is basically, X posting and chatting back and forth with people,
Yeah.
my own writing, preparing for courses, teaching at the college here in
Mhm.
Ottawa.
Yeah.
What else? The editing for other authors' books. That's daily, and that's a lot of work. Like,
Yeah.
what am I leaving out? Other work on the side, yeah. So I mean, yeah, bringing in
A
money to
lot.
eat and breathe, that's important too.
Yeah,
Like
just
it adds up quick. Yeah.
I believe it. I know for myself, just, recording videos, editing them, trying to get them out, and then I've recently tried to include TikTok, just to see, because I've
Mm,
been experimenting this year with platforms just to see what the same video does on different platforms,
yeah.
and purely for my own curiosity more than anything. But Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, those 4 alone destroy so much of my reading time.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you.
Yeah, it's
I
amazing.
finally bit the bullet and made a TikTok account, and I posted up my 2 keyboard smashing videos, and
Yes.
people seem to love that. But that's, I don't know. I'm tempted to, start putting a little more on there here and there, but
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. I don't think I'll ever be a ZS Diamante type of presence on TikTok.
Yeah. He has the bar so high, and
What
he
a
does
guy, though.
phenomenal. Yeah, he does a phenomenal job with it. And,
I'm
it's
sorry.
oh, no, that's fine. It's something you do need to kind of, as you say, moderate, put,
Yeah.
a bit of a time limit on, because it will drain that creativity too, at least I find.
total
Um,
total non sequitur there, but I can't remember
yeah.
if we talked about this at all in our over coffee
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
either of the times. But did I tell you that ZS Diamante and I, we were chatting, and he used to go to St. Pete's? Did you know that?
I don't know that he went to,
I think it was.
there, but I do know he was originally from our area.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
pretty. Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure it was St. Pete's because we were joking back and forth because I went
Yeah.
to St. Matt's, which is the rival school to St. Pete's,
Right,
and
right.
I know. Now you are making me second guess myself. I thought it was St. Pete's. I'm gonna have to ask him now. But yeah, that's what strikes in memory.
Someone
Because
get Zach
we
in the
laughed
live
at it. I
chat.
think, yeah, if he's around, because I think he said he was there for only like 3 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was his high
It's
school
entirely
years.
possible, because I know when I was chatting with him, he was saying he was from our neck of the woods
Yeah,
originally. So, yeah,
at least he was here for a few years. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
wild. I don't know, these little the people you meet in the book community.
yeah,
Even realizing that we're in, like, around here, and in the
yeah,
Ottawa area, like, just connecting a few other authors we've chatted with that I talk
yeah.
to all the time, had no idea were around here. Very cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, because the more, like, even, I was at Indigo in the West End, this week, and just looking around, they rearranged the entire sections of the store, so that drove me nuts. But wandering around shopping, finally found the fantasy section, and I'm looking around, and this guy just pops up out of my peripheral, and he goes, "Hey, I would recommend this book." And I looked at it, and when I saw it, I'm like, "Oh, that's an indie book." I'm like, "You're the author, aren't you?" And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, I am." I was like,
That's
"Awesome, give
funny.
me the book, sign it, please."
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, but it was just a random coincidence,
Yeah.
right? In terms of timing, because we got there, I wanna say we were there around 12:30 on a Monday. This
Oh,
is like
wow.
noon on a Monday. It's a like the day where most people would be at work,
No.
you would think, or busy doing other things. And anyway, it was just a really weird, perfect timing because when I went back a half hour later to that section, he was gone. So,
That's funny.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
I think I told you about the one signing I did at the chapters, closer
mm,
to my end, and
yeah.
yeah, that was definitely. I don't think I was that brazen, which I mean, don't get me wrong, that's awesome. I wish I had, stalk anyone nearby the fantasy section while they passed my book. That would have been funny. I just stayed at my
Yeah.
table and let people come to me, which
Yeah.
I was shocked by how many people did. When you're
That's
a new
awesome.
author, you don't know what to expect. And so I had my books on display. I didn't have too much. I didn't have marketing banners. I didn't have bookmarks. I didn't have anything flashy. It was just me and my books, and people came
Yeah.
over, said hi, struck up conversations. I got
That's
to get like
fantastic.
there was one, I think he was 11 or 12 years old, and he begged his mom to let him have my book. That was
Oh,
coolest experience I've ever
that's
had as an author.
would that be like a check off your author
Oh,
dream list or goal list?
absolutely, yeah.
Yes. I
when I
love
when I
it.
initially when I broke the story into 6 smaller parts, part of my thinking there was, the fantasy books that got me hooked on fantasy were the Del Toro Quest series by Emily Rhoda, and
Okay.
those were novella length, serial books.
Right.
And I remember I would just blast through those in a night. And so at
Yeah.
11, 12 years old, that was heaven for me. They were so much fun.
Mm.
And so I
Yeah.
kind of thought, my story's a little, it's heavier is the wrong word, but again, it has a bit of a darker edge, but it's clean. So
Mhm.
when I split it, I thought this is the kind of book that I would have read at that age easily, but
Right.
uh, in hindsight, I do feel it fits a slightly older audience much better. And especially with the changes I made it
Right.
now much more to fit, and more of a, I would say 25 to 40-year-old audience. It's probably your
Yeah.
average reader who would enjoy it. But I mean, it varies. But yeah, 15-year-old me would have loved this book, but I don't know if 12-year-old me. I
Right.
think he still would have. I just wouldn't have recommended it to him.
Right. Well, and it depends on the kid too, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
there are some kids who are quite well read in the genre by the age of 12
that's
to
true.
the point where they're moving on to bigger and better things by the time 13 comes around. So, like I remember kids in my own age group at that age reading, heavier fantasy
Yeah.
books like Wheel of Time at a younger age.
I
Yeah,
think it was
I
12 when
could
I
see it.
blasted through the Lord of the Rings books
Yeah.
for the first time.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh, I wish I had started Wheel of Time earlier. That would have been great. My uncle gave them to me when he gave me the first, I think, 9. If I have that right, when
Okay.
I was around 9 or 10 years old. And I looked at and a lot of people. Here's the thing, and I'm not one to speak because I'm about to get an illustrated cover done, which is a whole other
Right.
conversation. But
Yes.
when I was younger, I found so many illustrated covers, especially those older ones. Some of
Yep.
them were so corny, if I'm being honest. And Wheel of Time, the old Wheel of Time covers, some of them are really bad. Some of them are great.
Oh, you don't love them?
The very do I have? I have a few
Do
of them
you
behind
have
me
them?
here. I know I have it. Yes, there we go. Here we go.
Oh, yes, the original ones,
I
yeah.
cannot stand that cover. I am so sorry, but I cannot stand that cover. I get that
Fair.
Moiraine is short. She's not like that.
Yeah.
That's like not even a child riding a little pony next to a giant. Like Lan is big, but sorry, there's
Yeah.
everything about that. Nope,
No.
nope.
Doesn't work.
There's something
Right.
about it that has always irked me.
Oh.
Little things.
Well, so, talking about covers, and you said you have an illustrated cover in mind that you wanna get to, and I do wanna apologize, Kenneth, I see your question. We will cover your question in a moment there, and someone remind me if I get off track again. But in terms of the cover, are you going to use the, same cover artist or the illustrator artist that you had used for your illustrations to do the
Well, so
cover?
the plan is so Rachel Boswick designed this cover, and she designed my
Okay.
earlier ones as well. And this one, I mean, I loved the earlier ones, and then this one took a consistent, design. I love the way
Mm.
that the framing goes
Yes.
around the spine and the back. I just absolutely, like, to me, I love that. I love the simplicity of it. I love the
Yes.
Celtic swirls and designs. A lot of my world
Mm.
uh, little things like names and culture and linguistic hints that I throw in, all inspired by Celtic lore. Um,
Right, okay.
so I
Yeah.
love that she captured that theme so well and so elegantly.
Yeah.
So the plan is, she's going to do the typography and some similar border work, just not as much, just so that the illustration shows off a bit better.
Yeah.
Um, I'm probably going to replace the blurb with quotes, again, just to
Mm.
give more space for the illustration.
Okay.
And then yeah, and then as far as the illustration goes, yes, I'm getting Joe Requeza, who did the interior art, to do the
Beautiful.
full color illustration. Yeah,
That is awesome. I'm
yeah,
very excited to see what he comes out with, especially after the illustrations, because
yeah,
those
yeah.
illustrations are stunning. Yeah.
So he starts working on that end of October, and then I
Okay.
have no real idea of how long it'll take to finish. And then
Right.
there's the getting the confirming with people about the quotes on the back, getting the typography done, things like that.
Yeah. Takes
Yeah,
time.
so I'm kind of moderately hopeful for. I feel like it's probably way too soon. It's earliest early December, more
Right.
realistic early 2025 is when I'll be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's fair. It takes time. It's a lot of work.
yeah,
And yeah, so something to look forward to.
yeah, very
And
much so.
folks, if you're hanging on for that, save some of your Christmas money.
Yeah.
That's the best way to go about it. So
I realize it's
Kenneth,
kind of a weird thing for an author to do. Oh, sorry, we'll
no,
get
that's
to.
okay. Go for it. No.
I laugh because here I am. Part of the hiccup is I had another potential illustrator, but the timeline was much, much, much longer. And then it
Okay.
turned out to be even longer than we maybe initially thought. There was the
Right.
possibility of it getting shortened. It turned out that wasn't the case. So I thought,
Mhm.
okay, and this was before I worked with Joe. So then I worked with Joe in the middle of that and realized here's someone who's very quick, very affordable, and totally captured the vision of what I had in mind with
Yeah.
three separate illustrations to do that well, that consistently, that quickly, just everything across the board, top tier quality. And I thought, okay, here's my guy,
Yeah.
and everyone was fine with that decision. So, but the funny thing about that is that means here I am launching a book and now telling you about the new cover days later. But I'd rather
That's all right.
one, I'd rather be honest about that. Two, here's my
Yeah.
thinking: is this kind of has a fun special edition feel.
Yes.
I like some of those simpler special editions that are out there. So
Yeah.
my thinking is, if you want this is not going to be available forever. It looks
Mhm.
beautiful. Grab it now.
There you
Uh,
go.
and then then sooner or later it's going to be
Well,
replaced.
and it's not uncommon to see that with trad publishing as well, right?
Mm,
So I've seen books with two different covers side by side in the same format.
yeah,
And I don't know if there's a difference in it being UK or US covers. Seeing it on the shelves here is a little weird because typically we don't get UK covers, we get USA covers. But to see the two of them put together, it makes me wonder what the difference is and why they went with the two in the stores. Because, like I said, we don't often get UK covers here.
yeah, that
On
is so fair. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
even when we were walking down Indigo, right, we were looking
yeah,
through the fantasy section in particular. There were some books that we were looking like five different versions of them.
yes,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, you're very right.
So special edition, go
Yeah,
get
there you go.
it. So Kenneth, we need to talk about Kenneth's question here, which says, "Do you plan to visit the future at any point in the books?" And Kenneth, thank you so much for your patience.
Sorry, Kenneth. Yeah, Kenneth, what a great guy too. Some of the fan art he did for the book,
Mm,
spot on, just absolutely captured the vibe. I think, yeah. Where do I have it posted most recently? There's some on my Instagram. Anyways, yeah.
yeah,
Um, he did an amazing one, a caricature. So huge dragon, again, lots of dragons in the book, and then me holding a keyboard, wearing my hat and my t-shirt, smashing. Yeah, anyways, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, so wonderful. Nothing cooler than some fan art to capture some ideas from
Mm,
your work. Yeah. Okay. So as far as the future goes, uh, hmm, I'm going to say probably not. The reason Kenneth is asking the question is because there are some major time travel elements in the book. Um,
okay.
they're major in terms of what they do for the story, not so much in terms of, yeah, bringing you to that future. Funny enough, when I wrote the second part, Seas of the Zova, the initial idea for the prologue was going to be a scene from the future before the time travel incident that takes place that Kenneth and others who've read it will know about.
All
Um,
right.
but yeah, that to me it ended up being way too far.
Okay.
too far afield from, like, again, this is a fantasy story, and it got
Mm.
so deep into the see, I'm treading the spoiler alert line here, but I don't think it does.
Okay.
But that prologue would have very quickly turned into a space opera. That's how I'll put it.
Right.
And that's
Okay.
totally out of place in my world. Yeah.
Right. Gotcha.
So that's
Okay.
all I can say. I don't think that's too big a spoiler. It really isn't, but that's the
Uh,
point. Is there's a lot going on in this world, but it's grounded in the
mm.
18th, late 17th. Yeah, no more late 17th, early no, sorry, 18th and 19th century feel is what I was going for.
Okay.
You know, again, Napoleonic. So think early 1800s.
Right.
This was kind of the vibe I was going for in terms of how you'll feel in that world. So yeah, space
Nice.
opera doesn't belong. Sorry, Kenneth. Someday, maybe, there's a novella idea that I'll get to eventually.
That can be a multiverse
There you go.
exploration. In terms of what you want readers to walk away with after reading your book, what do you want them to they read the book? What do you want them to walk away with from the story? A feeling or just pure excitement? What do you hope they walk away with?
That's tough. I mean, for sure, I want them addicted to the story. I want them
Mhm.
to have caught things by the end that they realize were, the seeds were sown much earlier in the story.
Foreshadowing, I love it.
Yeah, I have so much fun doing that. It's really, yeah, and I love that in stories. And to me, those are kind of books I reread, because then I'm like, oh yeah, now I see it. Now I
Yes.
see it. Just the other day, I was watching The Prestige. If you've seen the,
Oh, yes, I love The Prestige.
yeah, Christopher Nolan.
So
You've
good.
got Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman, and just
Yep.
this amazing cast. And that movie to me is the epitome of, you have to pay attention, and no matter how hard you try, you will miss it. And
Yep.
then at the end, when it all comes together, you're like, I have to rewatch this right now, because oh my gosh,
Yes.
it makes sense. And then you rewatch, and you realize you didn't even catch a quarter of the hints they gave, building up to
Yeah.
this beautiful,
Well,
mm,
and
you know,
it makes the ending hit so much harder. I
yeah,
find as well when whether it's an author writing a story or, directing a movie and they take that course with it, when you take that foreshadowing so beautifully in throughout the story, the ending comes in like a wrecking ball.
yeah.
I find as like a viewer, like in particular with that movie, oh I was gutted.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, this is still just the first, even though it's three
Mhm.
parts brought together, it's still the first of at least two arcs of this size. So at
Okay.
the absolute minimum, this is going to be a duology. Um,
Okay.
yeah. And
With
now
potential for more.
yeah, and I think the ending I have in mind for the second part, it, I don't, no, I want more than that. I'm going to,
Mm,
because I have an even broader destination in mind that I can either leave as sort of I can leave it open ended, but I don't think that'll
right.
be a satisfying ending. The ending to the next part will
Right.
be satisfying for sure. But to
Okay.
me, I want to reach that next part.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And well, speaking about that, welcome, Will. They have a question saying, what was your favorite part about the process of writing a novel like this?
Ooh, that's favorite part of writing is. That's tough. Sorry. Favorite part of writing this novel would probably, this is going to sound insane, absolutely bonkers. Um, my favorite part was probably the editing, but
Oh,
not just your, yeah. So I mean, I loved, the thing about writing for me is it's already doing what I love doing, which is just living in that,
right.
is continuing to build out and flesh out that's this world I have in mind. um, and in some ways it's so much easier to do it while writing than just jotting down notes, or just letting your imagination go wild. Writing really makes it come alive, because now it's on the
Mm,
page, and now you reread and it comes back to you. These
yeah.
ideas don't get lost, they're now permanent, and they're taken on a life of their own. And so in the story, that's the first part I'll say. When the story
Mm,
takes its own direction from you, that's cool. That's a very satisfying
mm,
feeling. But then when I was editing, getting feedback from others, very fun part of the process. You develop a thick
mhm.
skin very quickly, but then you also develop this amazing gratitude to those who are helping you, and you flesh it out, and you help it grow to something better than you initially had. Um, but then when I did what I did with this book, which was, I think we talked about it a little, I think, and
Yeah.
then, yeah, you know, where more or less what I did is it started with just one chapter, and there was this whole thought process behind it. But the short version is I just rewrote the entire thing word for word,
Mm.
not reimagining, but like I just had the chapter open on one screen, a blank file on the other, and I retyped it out. You know,
Oh,
and
fascinating. Yeah.
yeah, and while I was doing that, you know, there's a whole bunch of reasons why I thought it might be a good idea. Mostly copy work, which I do sometimes do with other writing. I'll take passages from books I really love, and I will type them into a file. And while I'm doing it, I'm trying to study what makes this click with me so well.
Mm.
What techniques are they using that really stand out? Why does this flow so well? What elements of grace does it have? What word choices, you know, or rhetorical devices do they use that I can maybe emulate, you know? And then I do that
Mm.
with a few different authors, a few different passages, and slowly you see it seep into your own writing, you know?
Right.
So then
Interesting.
I did it with my own writing because I thought I need a way to get past, you know, when you're editing, you read what you wanted to say, not what you meant, or not what's actually on the page. So when you're editing your own stuff, it's very hard to catch your mistakes. You
Right.
know? So I just started retyping it out to try to catch more. But at the
Okay.
same time, I thought I also want to take a deeper dive into my own writing style and see what I can improve, but also see like what I did right because I wanted to make sure my voice was consistent in the new stuff I was writing. You know?
Mm. Right. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It it's a hard filter, right? Like you said, it's editing your own stuff. It's hard to catch everything, but you get 3 or 4 editors on a project and there's still things that are gonna fall through the cracks.
Always, and it's brutal. Some of the things that
Yeah.
slipped through, so many different people had an eye on so many different parts of my book, and still, I think it was Kenneth. It might have been Kenneth, or no, I think it was Kenneth who found. And this one made me laugh, and it won't make anyone laugh nearly as much, but and it's so small, but it was so perfect. All my
Yeah.
university years and constantly being bombarded with qualitative research versus quantitative research. So
Okay.
qual and quant. And I tried to use the word quaint in my book.
Right.
It turned out quant, and he caught it. And I was just like, no, darn you. I want to get away from that crap. Anyways, it was super funny. And no one caught it. And it was such
Yeah.
a glaring thing, but you just glance over it, you know, a
Yeah.
quaint little whatever in the context.
Well,
You don't
and
catch it.
yeah, I've read books that, I've done the beta reading process, and I remember in one of my beta reads that I, took part in, I was like, "Hold on a second." N his it was a scene where, this guy was in a fight and, something happens to his eyes. But I was like, "No, he's only got 1 eye. He lost his
Oh,
eye earlier." So, just that one S,
yep.
right? It made
Yeah.
it past so many people reading,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't think twice,
Yeah.
right? If you see it and you're like, "Oh, yeah, eyes, whatever." It's like, "No, he's only got 1 eye left. He lost the other one."
I mean, no,
Yeah,
that's a great example though.
yeah.
It's so hard to keep track of different elements that you have going
Mm.
along. Uh, for me, one of them is you know there are little article of clothing changes or items they have with them
Right.
that they have at one point but they leave behind at another, and you have to remember they don't have this anymore, or they have
Yeah.
this thing but not the little things like that, and so you're 10 scenes
Mm.
later or a whole book later and you have to
Oh my
still
gosh.
have that, you know? It
Yeah.
adds up quick. It adds up very quick, especially if you're following lots of characters, which I do. I love
Yeah.
Motley Crue's, so I definitely have a
Love
Motley
it.
Crue vibe in my yeah.
So what was I have a few questions here, but I wanna dive into this Motley Crue. What is it that you love about Motley Crue's, and what was fun for you in writing your own?
Well, I mean, so part of it is I love the different points of view. I love getting into different head spaces of different characters. So as a writer, I'm writing from those different perspectives. So that's a
Right.
fun exercise, and it's
Mm.
just fun imagining from those different perspectives. But I also love reading that. To a point, has to be done
Mm.
a certain way, and I'm hoping I pulled it off. I love it. What I but I'm the author, so we all love our own writing.
Yes.
But I definitely read it done wrong. It's it can get overwhelming or I'm sure, there's even, funny enough, even in the Wheel of Time, there were a few times where it got so disjointed that I really didn't like all the POV shifts. And I wished we had
Mm,
spent more time with just, one. Uh, and in my case, if to me, I think what happened was I like multiple points of view when they follow a single story. But
right. Okay.
if you use multiple points of view to tell me 5 side stories that will never have any relevance to the main.
That's
Um,
where you get lost.
yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe you're using it for character development, but
Mm,
some side plots in stories drive me nuts. They just have nothing to do to me with what I signed up for when I opened this book.
right.
And
So,
so, yeah,
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say. So, like, my pledge while I was writing was every side, no matter how far afield this feels, it has to tie into this main arc that we're following.
Right.
You know?
So, from my understanding, then, if you have multiple POVs that are like they're individual journeys, but they are impacting the main plot point,
Yeah, or at the
that's
very least being influenced by it, and then
yes.
it all. Anyways, yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Making
You're
sure
not
I
going to
have that
read.
right.
That's the thing, and I even try to
Mm,
reward readers for following along with some of those side stories because there's Easter
right.
eggs that will hint back to the big thing that's coming. Things like that, right?
Nice. So,
Yeah.
how did you keep track of all of these little details? Did you keep them in an Excel sheet, a piece of software, anything special? Did you write them on paper and then protect that paper with your life? You know?
I probably should. Yeah, no, I have my systems. I
Okay.
use, most of my outline is in OneNote. My outlines, I should say, multiple
Okay.
pages and documents and tabs. Um,
Very
and then
handy.
basic notes and chapter notes all go in there. I have a world book, which for whatever reason is in a whole separate. I have that in Google Docs, so that's it's.
Okay.
And I don't even use Google Docs for anything else really, except for university and college related stuff. For
Right.
some reason, that's just where my world book started. So that's where it is,
Hey.
and I'm too lazy to switch it, and it just feels intuitive to me there. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's where I have,
Okay.
I'll just have the terms, whether it's geography or character names or ecology or food or
Mm,
or anything you can think of in that. Just more like an encyclopedia for the world. And I have little sentences or paragraphs or point form notes for all of them, and it just keeps getting longer and longer and longer. But I'm very
so
religious when it comes to using headings and table of contents. It's very
right.
organized. So far it has not failed me. But
So I'm really curious then, because one thing that I've seen in a lot of popular books is, the illustrated guide to the world or
mm,
the encyclopedia of this world,
yeah,
right? Is that something you would ever consider doing
the
for
plan
your own world?
is two things I'm planning to do. It's tough. I mean, I don't want to have to wait till the third book. I think I can do it by the second. Um, I am planning to add both a glossary and a map to the second
Okay,
book. Yeah. So,
nice,
I mean, a
nice.
map I just really want to do. I was even looking today at two. I have my eye on two different artists, two very different
Mm,
styles, both of which I would just love. It's so tough.
yeah.
Yeah. The thing about a
Okay.
map is like, so glossary I could do because same thing as a pronunciation guide, right? It doesn't have to have everything. It doesn't have to have the content for the next 5 books now. It just
Right.
needs what's in
Yeah.
that book in front of you.
Yeah.
My problem with a map right now is I can't stand maps that cut like a continent in half and they just show me like
Oh, I
it's
see.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
me. I don't know why, but because I mean, if I'm looking in an atlas and I see a map of Europe and it cuts off the rest of Eurasia, I'm not complaining. I don't care. I just want to see where these countries are. But when I
Right.
see that in fantasy books, I don't know why it drives me bonkers.
You're like, "No, I need to know what's over there. Please
Yeah,
tell
I
me.
want to know.
It's
And
a
then
mystery."
here's because what goes through my mind is, see, the author doesn't know yet. They're cheating. And here's me confessing to you, absolutely. There are still things I need to
Right.
map out. There are still things I want to do. You'll get the map when it is done.
Yeah. So, Senna has a related question here, and I do see your other question, Senna, we'll get to that too. Will you sell the map and glossary separately for the audiobook folks?
Great question. I mean, the map I probably wouldn't even sell. I would probably make that available. Just
Yeah.
as an image, a simple image. I think there's an extra fun to getting it in the printed format. Same thing with my illustrations. I've seen Ryan Cahill joke about he'll show his illustrations and say, "Well, this is the worst thing I could do for my marketing, but here it is anyway." Kind of my attitude. I
Right.
want to show these things off. You know,
Well, and I've seen plenty of authors who put the world map and like the encyclopedias on their website
yeah,
directly,
yeah,
just as a reference point, and then there's like a QR code in the book
yeah.
itself
Yes, yeah, and
to
that's a good
retract.
workaround too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really, yeah, I think that's what I would do is I would have my map probably available in multiple spots, and the glossary
Mm.
I would have on my website once it's
Yeah.
proper and ready. Again, like I have that world book, but that is not like those are notes for me. They're not worded in a way that is accessible. They're
Right.
point form author speak. It wouldn't be ready yet. So that would take probably as much. Wouldn't take as much time as writing a new book, but it would take enough time
Right.
that I can't do it yet. Yeah,
Absolutely. Quality over rushing it
exactly.
is
Yeah.
essentially what I'm hearing. And Cinna's other question was confirming whether or not this is a period piece.
Yes, that's tough. I want to say no, just as my knee jerk reaction. Um,
Okay.
yeah, just because I again I take so many liberties with
Mm.
historical. I mean, it's not even. It's a total fantasy world. The historical accuracy is not something I'm even remotely interested in. Just and
Right.
except in terms of consistency, as long as the world is consistent within itself.
Right.
So it doesn't go too far away from what you would expect in Napoleonic era society and technology and cultural elements and food elements even. But there even I have fun. You'll see what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it also goes far afield. Again, sci-fi
Yeah.
elements and medieval elements go in there. But yeah, I don't think period piece is how I would describe it.
Okay. No, that's fair. And John just stopped by and is saying hello, and he will be listening as he drives home. Drive safely, John, and thank you for listening. Just drive safe. That's
Yeah, cheers,
that's
John.
more important.
Absolutely.
And Kenneth here wants to know, do you enjoy the promotion part that comes with self-publishing?
Probably more than most. Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. But then so much of it I'm still learning. So ask me a year from
Right.
now when I've either sold lots or sold none, and I'm either overjoyed or
Yeah.
miserable. We'll see. No, I'm kidding, but you know what I mean. Like you
Yeah.
know, it's a grind. It's from day one, it is a grind.
Yeah.
I love. We were talking about this before.
Hmm.
Social media, it takes up so much of your time.
It
So I
does.
restrict myself. I don't really spend a lot of time on other platforms, and I
Yeah.
enjoy Twitter/X.
Yeah.
I love the community there. I'm back and forth. There's so much support, and it's there. I'm more just there for fun, and I work remote for the most part, except for my college work.
Right.
So I can do that while doing my own thing.
Mm.
The only time I have to take huge stretches, and even that, it's usually just maybe on a corner of one screen for me,
Mm.
if I even have it open. But it means I can be somewhat more consistent than maybe most.
Right.
And then I did some marketing studies back in the day, so it's fun. I kind of get to test out things and ideas
Nice.
I've thought about for years. And yeah, so I don't know. Like to me, I treat it as sort of a fun little game. It's I'm learning new skills. Marketing is a skill. If you treat
Yeah.
it as a fun skill that you're learning, and then whether or not you learned it well kind of depends on how many sales you bring in. So you have constant feedback. Your constant feedback is, did I sell or
Mm.
didn't I? And I don't know. It's yeah, I enjoy it. Half of marketing is just community, right? It's just plugging yourself into an
Yes.
awesome community. So like
Yeah.
that should be fun. If it's not fun, you're doing it wrong. People are
Yeah.
great.
There you go. Sales pitch for community right there.
Yeah,
It should be
exactly.
fun. If it's not, then
Something is way off. Yeah,
yeah. I will second your comment though on experimenting and like trying different things and, figuring out what works because the same can be said for content creation.
yeah.
And because I tried when I initially started my channel, I tried the whole these are the X, Y, and Z things that you're supposed to try in terms of making videos and
Mm,
specifically booktube videos. And a lot of it, I was just like, yeah, this is not for me.
this is not
TBR
working.
videos are not for me. you
Fair.
know,
Yes.
like I cannot stick to a TBR to save my life.
Yep.
So, there were certain things that just were not working. And I in the last year, like I was talking about earlier, I've just been pure experimenting just to see what happens. And there's always that line or fear of, if you stop posting for a certain amount of time, the algorithm gods will get you.
Yes.
They'll
Oh my
stop
gosh, yes.
promoting. And it's, yes, to a degree,
Yeah.
but it's not worth the stress that you think it is.
Yeah.
And that will
100%.
happen. Your account is not going to be smote. You're just you're going to be fine. You might lose like 5 subscribers that were probably bots anyway,
Yeah.
and you'll be fine. But but if you try doing new things, new videos, new types of posts even, you'll find you'll reach a wider audience than if you were posting consistently, for example, because that's
Yeah.
one of the rules of posting too, is you have to post at this time on this day every week,
Yeah.
right? And no, not so much. If your content, if your marketing schemes are good, people are going to find you regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, like that's exactly how it is for me on Twitter. There was a huge phase where I was very, very consistent. And
Yeah.
it really meant posting at the same time every day, responding, just for a
Hmm.
certain period. And then I usually stopped after a certain period because that's when things trailed off.
Yeah.
And then, at some point, life catches up. You take a few days off, you come back, and you realize, oh, you know what? Nothing has changed. Or another time I took
Hmm.
a few days off, things dropped for a little bit, picked back up very quickly.
Yeah.
Another time I took another stretch off, and when I came back, things exploded. Like there's no
Yeah.
rule. And then sometimes I'll do my posts at night. Lots
Hmm.
of people still respond, or I do it early in the morning. No
Yeah.
one responds because it's too early, or I respond a little
Yeah.
later. It's like you play around, but ultimately
Yeah.
it's your own voice and your own skills,
Hmm.
and that's the thing. That's the real factor here that you have power over. So you're learning as you go, and like you said, people will find you.
Yeah, and the algorithms are gonna change anyway in a day or
Yeah.
2. From
My
if
gosh,
you
do they change
ever figure
often?
it out.
So yeah, people who tell you they've got it figured out, one, they might be right now, and they'll be wrong
Mhm.
tomorrow. So just don't
Yeah.
stop worrying about it.
Yeah, just do what you can, have fun experimenting. Cinna, yes, you're in your
Yeah.
experimental phase. Have fun with it, because honestly, that's the big part. If you have fun, people will notice as well.
Yep.
That makes a difference too.
Big
So
time.
I think we need to talk about the keyboard. What is happening with the keyboard for those who don't know, and why does it
Well,
deserve it?
here's the thing. It seemed so perfectly, and I say that in the worst sense possible, perfectly timed, because it was just as I finally started writing the sequel to this book. So I finally sat down, started writing the sequel to The Fall of Seldandrea, and it seemed that was the moment my keyboard decided to start just going bonker, like out
Mm,
of control. It was adding extra spaces almost every time I pushed the space bar. It was adding extra symbols and punctuation everywhere. It
okay.
would miss a letter. It would add a letter. It was going absolutely wild. I thought the Bluetooth was maybe off. Wasn't that? I tried connecting it different ways. Nothing I did helped. Uh,
Right.
I was having so much trouble with it, and I mean, most of my work is from this computer. So so
Yeah.
that became a huge impediment, not just to my writing, but to everything. And it meant I had to spend extra time correcting those mistakes before hitting publish
Yes.
on anything.
So all that pent up rage, what
It
did you
adds
do to
up.
the keyboard?
Well, so
For those who don't know, what did you do to this poor keyboard?
well, here's how it got. So one day I don't know, it wasn't so much rage yet. It was just
Mm,
I know the spacebar in particular. I bent the keyboard just a little bit over my knee. It was a little flexible, didn't break
okay.
anything, and I noticed the keyboard started working for about a day after that,
Oh,
and then it
okay.
went back to bad. So that's what
Something was wrong
confirmed. That's what
mechanically.
confirmed. There's a physical something is wrong with this keyboard.
Mhm.
But that's what sparked the idea of, you know what? If this goes, what sparked the idea was, if this gets any worse, I am just going to smash this thing over my knee. And then I thought, I'm going to do this on video. This will be fun. I've done, yeah. One
Yeah.
time I had a summer job where they got us to go in back, and it was at a donation store, and they got me and another guy to go out back and smash furniture that had been donated that was too damaged to sell, safely.
Right.
And so we
Right.
just got to smash things with bats or toss it over our heads and watch
Nice.
these cupboards. disintegrate over the pavement, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought, you know what, this is going to be great. I'm going to do something like that. So
Mm.
so I grabbed the keyboard, I set up the webcam, and I literally just filmed a 1 minute video explaining everything I did, or 1.5 minutes, 1 minute
Yeah.
explaining everything I just did, and everything else is just me smashing this thing over my knee, and then flipping it
Oh.
over, doing it some more, going to town on it, and that is one of the most cathartic experiences I have ever had.
Didn't didn't you take a sword
So that was video
to it?
number two.
Yeah,
So
okay. I was
so
gonna say, 'cause I remember a sword in there as well. Oh,
this
yeah.
sword,
Yes.
yeah. So
Did
I'm
you
currently
did
hoarding
you
it.
damage the sword? That's my
Not
concern.
even a bit.
Okay,
Now I
okay.
tested it a little before. I wanted to make sure it would hold its own. I didn't want the metal flying out of the
Mm,
hilt. I didn't want to injure myself. So
yes.
I did some different stress tests to make sure it was fine. It's durable. It held up against some other inanimate objects.
Right.
Uh, and then yeah. So I was pretty confident it was going to be fine. I had my
Mm,
glasses on. Other than that, I wasn't too concerned.
right.
Um, yeah. It's
Yeah.
sharp. It's not that like it is actually sharp, but it's not so sharp that I was really worried. And I made sure I kept the rest of my body a safe distance away from the keyboard. And
Yes.
yeah, so
Hacked away.
so then yes, I got to film myself taking this already mangled keyboard and just smashing it like with with a Lord of the Rings sword. That was yeah. For anyone
So,
who I, I
yeah.
don't know. It'd be fun to test people to see if anyone recognizes what. You know what? I'm going to hold it again. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
let's
if you
quiz me.
watch it later or listen later, I guess I could describe it. The point is, if anyone can tell me the name of this sword from Lord of the Rings, I will be thoroughly impressed.
Oh, I'm terrible with remembering names.
Yeah, or even just
Let's
which character and or characters it belongs to. And
Oh,
we'll leave it
God.
at that.
Okay. Well, we'll see what the chat says. I
Yeah,
have a name
I'm
in my head,
curious
and
who
it's
will
probably
know.
wrong. And
Yeah.
Kenneth here says next keyboard gets the flintlock. Yeah.
Something I should go for. Yeah, it's funny too. I have this here as well. I've never shown this on camera. I don't think. Um, Shortly after I wrote the first part of the book, I found I just found it online, but it's a bull horn hilt Damascus steel blade dagger that matches the dagger carried by the main character in the book. So if you've
Okay.
read the book, you'll recognize the shape at the very least. The blade should be
Mm,
a little longer. In the book, it's a little longer, but
okay.
I found this dagger, and I just had to buy it right away.
Yes.
Got it shipped here, no problem. Yeah, and so minus a few little tweaks, this is about as close as you can get to what I imagined in the book. So for anyone who's read it,
That's
Valerius
fantastic.
Draskar and his Chazandur dagger. Um,
Okay.
yeah, a little fun tidbit there. So, yeah,
That's
other
fantastic.
than that, though, the point of showing that was just to say I've got a few swords and a few daggers. I even have I have two Harry Potter ones from back in the day.
We all
That's
have
about
that
as
collection and from
yeah.
our generation.
That's exactly that's as far as I've gone. I don't have any flintlock pistols yet, Kenneth. I'm sorry to say, but I will. I will now that the idea is out there. I think you're right. I think the next device to go has to go out in style.
So, Will, I saw your other question, but since we're on this topic, or with the guessing, they're saying, is that sword Idril the one that Thranduil wields? I am
No.
terrible with pronunciations.
Oh,
Do
oh,
not
you're
come near
you're
me,
fine.
Kenneth.
That was good.
Okay.
Idril and Thranduil. I now I'm terrible. Yeah, yeah. I
See,
thought
there
you
we
did. Yeah. I know the character, so no,
Mm.
close, but no, close-ish.
My guess would be the one that starts with E. Elrond? Elran?
Yes and
You
no,
know
but
who I
yes,
know?
yes, yes, you are
Okay.
right. Yeah,
Elrond, okay.
yeah, yeah.
Bonus points.
So, extra bonus points if you can tell me the other scene where the sword appears. Just in the first movie, in the first Lord of the Rings, it appears in other movies as well.
Oh,
But yeah,
um,
that's what would impress me is if someone knows both times it appears.
mm.
It's tough.
They're all jumbled in my head. I don't think I can, because 'cause I'm thinking of the, The other, the king elf from the Hobbit movie.
Yeah, well, that would be Thranduil.
Yeah, okay, Thranduil. That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's who like the scenes I'm thinking of, but I don't think
Yeah,
that's right.
he has a pretty cool sword too. The difference there is
Yeah.
it has a straight hilt and it's all one metal piece, whereas this wooden hilt
Mm.
curves, which is kind of, it's not the same type of sword. There's a, if
Right.
anyone has read my book, the Corosas, there are big duels in the book by characters wielding these. They're more like katanas, like samurai katanas, but with curved hilts.
Yes,
In
okay.
this, and
Yeah.
and and that's sort of the image I had. So it's sort of a blend between a katana and this sword that I own, which is kind of fun. But
Mm.
funny enough, I dreamed up that sword idea before I bought this sword. Again, it was one of those things where I've written this, I have to have it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So, to Will's other question here, as an author, do you ever borrow elements from people you know in real life when making characters? Have they ever noticed that? I've always been curious.
that is probably my favorite question. I'm gonna I'm gonna have fun answering this, and you'll see why.
Okay, I've got my drink. I'm here.
So the on the copyright page, at this point, everyone knows it from those who have read any book from me. Most people have noticed it by now. But if you turn to the copyright page in
And
my
this is why I
books,
always read the copyright
yeah,
page.
this is why you ought to do it. I had fun with this. I wanted to throw something like this in, so I've done it in all my books ever since I thought of it. Yeah. So you have your standard disclaimer. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and
Mm.
incidents are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to actual events, locales, or persons, this is answering your question, is entirely coincidental. And then I added this. If you believe you see yourself reflected in the pages that follow, try to remember. There's no way the author likes you enough to incorporate you into his work.
That's really funny. I'm laughing because I've been Tuckerized. Oh my goodness.
Now, so okay, that aside, because I just had so much fun writing that and
Yes.
throwing that in, and I don't know if I could legally get in trouble for this, but I don't think so. So this is just me having fun.
Right.
Um, my answer is probably more nuanced. So for fun, I tell people, yeah, no. Um, uh, would I ever write a revenge character? Probably not. Maybe little bits and pieces from lived experience, where it's a character might exhibit different traits from different people that I've
Mm,
experienced over. Like inevitably, your experiences are going to flood into your writing. That's
right.
part of it. I think our job is to distance it from targeting anyone. Obviously,
Yeah.
yeah. Now that said,
Yeah, go for it.
uh, there are two characters that I have openly stated at this point are directly inspired by encounters.
Okay.
I can. I don't think I. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think I told you. Okay, I don't think I told you this story.
No,
So I mentioned it online very recently, and now I'm just thinking I have to tell it.
go for it.
Two of my other favorite characters from the book, Kenna and Jeddah.
Oh, okay.
You meet them very early on, so I don't know if you've gotten that far yet, but in chapter 2 is when you first encounter them. Uh, so let me think. The first two times you meet them, they are with Rinwen, or it'll be in situations where Rinwen is there as well. And what happened was I went to a coffee shop, and this was when by this point I had started working on the book. This was a
Mm,
bridgehead here in Ottawa, near,
okay.
near
Yeah.
where I used to live, and I was meeting my sister. And so she was on her way, but she was running late. And so there I am
Mm,
sitting at a table for two, working on my book. And these two older guys come in and sit in the table next to me. And the way it was set up, they were very close together. And
yeah.
they start having this conversation. And I can't help but hear it. It's some of the funniest stuff I've ever heard. They're these sweetheart old guys bickering. That's like they were
Yep.
ranting back and forth. One of the guys was a very, very, he had a very laid back, very friendly, very joking, sarcastic, and the other guy was as caustic and curmudgeony as you could imagine. And you could tell they'd been friends. Yes, you know
Yes.
exactly. Yeah, Kenneth knows what
Yes.
I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
they had, clearly been friends for years and years and years. The way they talked was just so entertaining.
Mhm.
And they said something, and I chimed in, and I forget what I forget what it was about, and they just immediately pulled me into the conversation, and we go back and forth. They're asking me questions about my life story. We talked probably for a solid. This tells you how late my sister was too. We probably went on for a good 45 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
They started haggling the barista who walked by, and she joined in on the conversation. I
It
think one of the
reminds me of
guys.
the Muppets. The
Oh,
old
yes,
the
yes,
Muppets, the old two.
100%. They are
Yes.
the perfect embodiment of those two guys. Like, exactly. I met them. I met them in person, and
Yes,
that is,
that's
yeah.
brilliant.
So those two guys, I immediately, and one of them, he turned to. So this is even borrowed conversation, because he turned to the barista and he said, "Hey, come here. We need your opinion on such and such. Yeah, don't worry, don't mind my friend here. John here has only been to jail once, and we were planning a heist. You can join us if you want. We were going to rob this bank on this date. Just show up with a bag and a mask. A ski mask is preferred." Like, he just goes on and on and on. And this poor girl is so confused.
Oh
I'm just sitting
no.
there laughing my head off. So I
Yeah.
immediately decided Ken and John are going into my book, no matter what. And so they did. They got inserted, and then I built this whole story around them. They fit very well into and now they're pivotal. Now where I'm headed,
Yes.
they're pivotal to where it's going. So it's great. Like
Yeah.
every time I see them, they're a mix of comic relief, but also mystery. And I have jail jokes, and I have
Yes.
heist jokes and old man jokes, just because these guys, they have to be there in my books.
Oh, I love it. I love it. You gotta love the dynamic between those type of people as
Yep.
well, right? Especially when they start bringing other random strangers into the chaos of it all.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
it's
the
a
thing too,
ride.
is you meet people who inspire you, where you think, I need to be able to write chemistry like this,
Yeah.
and sometimes there's nothing better than direct inspiration, for sure.
Did you find that process hard in terms of trying to recapture that charismatic dynamic?
You know what? I'd be curious to hear what Kenneth says, because as I wrote it,
Right.
to me, I found it easy, if anything, because the impression they made was so vivid that I felt it flowed onto the page, and it was
Right.
so much fun to write. And I reread those chapters, and I still laugh. I still, and some of that might just be flooding in from my memory, but
Right.
most people keep telling me Rin they love, and those two guys they love and want to see
Brilliant.
more. Yeah.
So job well done, I would
I
say
hope
in that.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are coming up to the hour and 15-minute mark. So I know that's
Yeah.
over the typical hour line. So why don't we do some rapid fire questions,
Sure.
and then to kind of get us closed out and give some of our viewers who are watching live an opportunity for any final questions. So folks, if you have questions for Tim, pop them in the chat as we go through our kind of rapid fire, and we'll go from there. And so let's kick this off. I know you talked about monsters and creatures in your world. What was your favorite monster or creature in your world?
Ooh, I
You have
love
to
the
pick just
Skelva.
one.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the Skelva, which is
Mm.
what you see in the third internal illustration. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So
Okay.
those are called the Skelva. Visually, they're meant kind of to be what you see, that mix of almost crocodile with octopus, like not octopus, more squid, like tentacles. So lots
Okay.
of
Yeah.
tentacles, and there's a whole dynamic around them and their communication and their biology that becomes very
Mhm.
important, and how it affects people who live in the same environment as them. Gets very
Okay.
interesting.
Interesting. Okay. All right.
No spoilers, but I think one of them that meets the eye. Yes, yeah. Don't worry, I'm not
Yeah.
spoiling anything, Kenneth. But it is, yeah. There's a lot going on with them, and it gets very fun.
Interesting. Okay. So read and find out.
Yeah,
That's
they're very much read and find out. But I think,
yeah.
yeah, they're definitely my favorite creature in the story to write. Not
So
not not in the world. Now that I've written a good chunk of the sequel, I have others. But for the
okay.
first book, the Skelver are pretty fun.
So from the illustrations, there's ships, there's water. To make sure I answer this or I ask this question properly, there's a bit of nautical theme,
Yeah,
right? What's something that you would love to see more of in nautical fantasy?
that's tough. I don't know. I would like to. I would like to find more to read. you know,
Yeah.
that's always, I find sometimes it challenging.
I
A
have a
lot of the
few
ones I do
racks.
find are more romanticy.
Yes.
So a lot of the nautical fantasy I find is romantasy, and I don't hate it. I've read a good amount at this point, and I can stand it. I can even enjoy it. It wouldn't be
Right.
my everyday cup of tea, you know.
So what would if we're looking at the typical fantasy that you come back to as like
Would
your
enjoy.
comfort read, and what would you like to see more of in terms of nautical fantasy and authors trying in that subgenre, if you will?
I mean, that's the thing is beyond just the fact that most I find doesn't satisfy me as a whole. I
Mm.
don't hate what's already out there. If
Okay.
anything,
All right.
yeah, if anything, I see people who will say, like, so for example, I've read the Patrick O'Brien series. That's historical fiction set in this sort of era, very very dense, very thick on
Right.
scientific elements, very thick on accuracy, historical accuracy, scientific accuracy, world building. In terms of even just every little detail of the ships fits the era perfectly. And some
Mm.
authors will say, if that's not there, I'm going to scream. Now, I did my best to make sure I lived up to accuracy, but I'm far more focused on the story. And I want you to absorb me so far into the experience that I don't care about the details. I want the details to be there, but I'm not going to throw a fit if you don't mention this specific nautical term, you know?
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So it's
Okay.
more just I want authors who can depict the ocean and these long voyages. I
Mm.
want more Voyager of the Dawn Treader style, adventure esque. Bring me to different worlds. Bring me to different islands.
Yeah.
I'm there for the experience.
Okay. Brilliant. I love it. And in terms of, and sorry, Senna here has a recommendation. The Elder Empire has
Other
some
Empire.
great
Okay. Yeah.
nautical. So, yeah, in terms of advice, because you have writing experience, you're an editor as well. If someone's looking into getting into writing, what would be your advice to a new author? And likewise, for someone looking to become an editor?
Hmm. My instant advice would be twofold. You need to do these two things as soon as humanly possible. Start writing, which is cliche, but it's just true. Put words on the
Yeah.
page, and I'm not talking about a 300 word outline, or sorry, a
Okay.
300 page outline. No one cares if you have a massive, massive, massive backlog of documents and you've never written that's not how you're ever going to, flex the muscle. That's not how
Right.
you're going to develop the ability to tell the story. That
Mm.
said, learning doesn't happen by osmosis. So I don't like when people say that's all you need to do. You know,
Right.
you're not going to just magically absorb the ability to write by just doing it more and more and more. That'll help. And reading
Yeah.
other books will obviously help. But there are resources out there that you can learn from. And this is where the editing side is, like if you want to actually develop those editing skills, you're probably going to need outside resources. And there are a
Yeah.
lot of them. There are a
Yeah.
lot of great online courses. Shani Raja has some amazing courses that are actually designed more for journalists,
Oh,
and yet his
interesting.
writing advice and his editing advice in his courses, out of this world. I'm going to type that in the chat for anyone here now. Uh,
Absolutely. I can also put it in the description later
put a link.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I will swear by his courses to my dying breath. But
Yeah.
there are others too. You know, so look broader. And that's the thing is you don't necessarily need to take a university course. If anything, I would say a lot of universities don't teach you a lot of these essential skills. Um,
Mm.
very limited departments. Journalism departments are good for writing skills. Um, the college I went to after my university years, very skill heavy, very skill focused. So I learned a lot there. Um, so go somewhere that you know is going to emphasize skills over ideas if you want to develop those. The technical side of writing, the ability to line and stylistic edit, even substantive and developmental editing. There are
Mhm.
skills there that you can learn that aren't just this ethereal mystery. There are actual concrete steps you can take. Join editors associations.
We
Anyways,
we have
there's a lot there.
we have Mike Molman in the chat saying that's why Tim wasn't watching Bald and Balding,
Sorry,
which
Mike.
folks
Yeah.
go check out Bald and Balding Mike's channel, or he's co-hosted there. So yeah, definitely go check out the Bald and Balding channel. Tim wasn't there. How dare you, sir?
I am so sorry. I'm allowed to be a trader once a week. How's that?
So in terms of the editorial advice, getting into becoming an editor, if someone's looking at that.
Yeah, so it would be a
Yeah.
lot of those courses to
Yeah.
learn those skills. Um, again, you shift your mindset from the ethereal storytelling to the
Mm.
technical skills and reps. Put in the reps.
Yeah.
Um, start finding ways to get the chance to give some feedback and see how people respond to it. And that's its own skill too, is learning to give useful, constructive feedback. And the thing is, as authors, we all love our darlings, as we call them, so you have to brace yourself and you have to learn. Mike actually was joking about this on Balding last night. Some authors want it hit them straight over the head.
Right.
And so you have to learn the social intelligence to know which authors need that and which authors need, okay, so I would maybe do this here and here's why, and here's an example of what you could do, and maybe do this or something like this, And so you have to develop those interpersonal skills, and you have to know what the author you're working with needs, which can be tough because sometimes you only get the one shot, right?
Yeah.
But again, put in the reps. I one of the things I did is on social media, I said, hey, who wants a free chapter edit? And I've done this twice now.
Okay.
Where other authors just said me, and it was awesome. And I, actually I still have, I had to apologize to the last 4 out of like nearly 100. It's like this insane number of chapters I edited. And so there are like four poor chapters left. I'm editing 2 full books right now, on top of teaching an editing course at college, on top of writing my book, on top of launching. Anyways, so I will get to it eventually, I promise. But the point is, doing those shorter reps, oh my gosh, one, it's fun and it's manageable because you're not editing a whole book on your first try. So you develop the skill in a safer environment, like I would say 5, like 6 out of however many have then asked me, hey, would you edit the whole book for me? So it's a great opportunity to bring in future clients. Well, most have emailed back and said, this is fantastic, thank you so much. Maybe 2, I think 2 total have said, well, okay, thanks, but maybe not for me, and that's fine too, and sometimes it's comedic, actually, it can be very entertaining, and that's just part of the gig. So
well, and it's a good way to put feelers out there and help someone out even.
So
In
kind of the
that
same
case.
advice as for writing is just put yourself out there. Some people will say no for editors. I would say, don't start charging people thousands of dollars when you have no experience.
Right.
Obviously, but I don't think I think you need to start fostering the muscle if you ever want to develop your own writing ability and your own editing ability.
Yes. Will has a question here. What do you use to write? I've been wondering what the most ideal format is for actually sitting down and writing a book, as I haven't found a sound answer that I'm sure on. And I have a feeling this is going to vary based on the author you're asking.
Yeah, totally. I talk to authors who use Atticus. I talk to authors who use every program you can think of. I started on Google Drive. I migrated very quickly to Word. And the reason I use Word is because I do my formatting on there as well.
Right.
And I've used InDesign for book formatting before. When I was publishing journals in universities, we used InDesign, or we used there's another software we used at Carleton. Anyways, I can't remember what that one was. And then now I just use Word, because if you actually put the time in to learn, Word is actually very versatile for formatting. And what I do is I pre-save all the formatting elements into a set style, and I just open new documents in that pre-saved style. So I have already the formatting for my next book is set. Very easy, saves. And I did that on the most recent book. It saved me hours of time and headache.
Yes.
That the second book took me. Out of the 2 smaller books, the second one was the worst, because I didn't save as many of those things, and I had to reduce. And just don't make those mistakes, Save yourself as much time as you can. Yeah.
So essentially, you have an option of different softwares you can use and figure out which one works best for you. Because I know for some people, they like the accessibility of Google Drive, because some writers write on the bus. They write while they're walking. Some people do speech to text and then fix it up later in another program. So
I migrated away from it just because I wasn't spending as much time writing in cafes, and things like that. And then, and I don't write on the bus, but then I talk to those who do, like Ed, PC Greaves, like, come on, that I could not do ever. But there, so if you want that mobility, Google. If you want, something comfortable that you're probably already used to, Word. If you want I don't know. I've heard that there's a lot of versatility and author specific tools available with something like Atticus. So
Right.
if you want something really tailored to authors, maybe that. But I find, like, everyone, like, experiment a little. Me, you want my bias is sit down at somewhere consistently, and that's probably
Mm,
going to be your home desk or a work environment, and stick with the program you use more often. Stick with
right.
what you're already familiar with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Kenneth here has a question. Any writing influences outside of fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, probably almost exclusively. I've read a lot of great fantasy. Wheel of Time and Lord of the Rings, obviously. Historical fantasy would be the most middle ground. One of my
Mm,
favorite series, if not my favorite series of all time, is an Arthurian. So Arthur and
yes.
Merlin and all that. Uh, it's a lot of history, a lot of Celtic lore, and a lot of history thrown in there. A lot of Roman Empire history thrown in
Oh,
there.
yeah.
It's the Taliesin. It's the Pendragon Cycle by Stephen R. Lawhead is the name of the
Yeah.
series. Yeah, and
Okay.
I love those. So his, but then I love sci-fi tech thrillers. I've
Mm,
even got a few of those behind me. Like one of my favorite books of all time, The Judas Strain by James Rollins.
okay.
Super
Yeah.
fun. It's more like a
Yeah.
spy thriller, but it has sci-fi elements in it. I love Michael
Nice.
Crichton, so like Jurassic Park, The
Yeah.
Andromeda Strain. The Andromeda Strain, I would actually say, has direct influence on my book, even though
Okay.
it's more futuristic sci-fi. But it has one key element that for sure I thought I love this, and I'm going to do something different with it. But it's for sure there, yeah.
Love it.
And then classics. I love. These are the last ones I'll say, but I like Count of Monte Cristo and Les Mis, two of my favorite books,
Yeah.
easily. Someone just, this is a tangent, but it's not a tangent. It's 2 seconds, but it's
No, go
totally
for it.
non sequitur. But just, I think it was just last night, I saw a post. Someone's, they called Les Mis a musical, and someone threw a fit and said it's an opera. And so I joined and I said, just call it a novel and you win by default because it was a novel first. Get out of
Yeah.
here. Sorry, it was a novel.
Yes.
Rant
It's
over, but yeah, it's one of my favorites. I love
yeah.
it.
I think most things can come back to being a novel.
Yep. All the good stuff.
Yeah. So, one of my
Sorry.
no, it's all good. One of my last rapid fire questions here is, in terms of a book that you would say everyone should read. I know you gave a few inspirations or influences to your writing, but a book you would say everyone should try at least. What's something you would recommend? And it can be any genre. I'm going to
My
go any
default
genre.
answer would be, do I have it there? If it's not there, it would be, I know I have it around here. Yes, I do. Yeah. So my default answer would be from the series I mentioned. We'll see how visible it is. Uh, Taliesin by Stephen R. Lawhead. Um,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
realize it's mirrored probably. So yeah, sorry. So if you
No,
can't see that,
it's all right.
yeah. So um, in the folklore, Taliesin is the father of Merlin. So it's very much
Okay.
setting off the chain of events that lead to Merlin and Arthur, but it's told in a very rich, like fantasy-ish style, like historical fiction level density, but in a fantasy. It's not a fantasy setting. It's set in Britain, and for the most part, most of the story takes place in Roman Empire era Britain,
Okay.
but in a very unique way, very, very unique. And I can't say more than that, except I can't oversell this book. It was given to me by people I absolutely respected. And so I
Mm.
gave it a fair chance because I probably wouldn't have otherwise. And I'm so glad I did. It quickly became my favorite book.
Awesome. I love to hear it. I love to hear favorites.
Yeah.
So for everyone watching now and later, where can they find you? Where can they get updates on the next book coming out? All of those things. Where can they follow you?
Easiest place would be to follow me on Twitter or X, so Tim McKay 52. I don't know what. Well, that's always been my favorite number. It's my birthday in reverse, so that's how
Hey.
that happened. And so 52 I've used my whole life, and yeah, Tim McKay 52 on X. Um, I am in the process of revamping a website for books. I hope to sell signed copies there eventually when I have the illustrated version done. So a bit of a visual rebrand will happen around then, and then you'll be able to find updates and stuff there, and a newsletter that's in the works. But yeah, by far best place. You can find me on X, and then the book is on Amazon in paperback, hardcover, and ebook, and nice and easy. Yeah.
Yep. Well, I'll have links in the description below for anyone who wants to check that out. And as you launch your website and everything like that, we'll update it there for
Perfect.
anyone watching it now and in the future. So thank you so much, Tim, for joining me, chatting with me. It's always lovely chatting with you. So I
Ditto.
appreciate it.
Absolutely ditto. Yeah, thanks for having me. And
And yeah,
yeah, we'll figure out another coffee and
yes.
indigo outing again soon.
Yeah, do some more damage to the wallet. That's how
Absolutely.
it works. To everyone watching, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your questions and chatting with us. Go check out The Fall of Salvandria. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves as always.
Cheers, everyone.